Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, my precious pack, and welcome back once more to VEGA Conflict. I'm glad to have you joining me, as always. For those of you waiting for a Leviathan review or something like that, don't worry, I've had plenty of time now, idling in World of Tanks more often than not. But today we're going to talk about the mobilization, the prizes, what can be recommended, what should be avoided, what to focus on farming targets-wise if you can, and then lay out the plans for Monday. So, mobilization up first. Right off the bat, before I even recommend anything else, make sure you get Victoria Onin no matter what it takes. She is by far one of the most useful commanders that I have accessible to myself currently, and I cannot stress it enough that you should do whatever you can within your power to obtain her. She is the fleet commander that no matter how often you use her in combat, how often she leads your forces, it's just that subtle increase of health. Well, not really subtle, gigantic when you max her out. That is amazing and outstanding. The increased missile speed is also a admirable trait and a few other things, but primarily it's that health bonus. And pairing her with the Umbral fleets and things like that, it just becomes an absolute monster with a 10% increase to damage. Now, that might not seem like much because it's limited to blight damage, but it's over the base value of your weapon, so the stronger weapons you have, that value will increase. So most weapons you have that are blight do over 400%, well, 400 damage per second. So you can immediately calculate it out to 440 or higher. However, her bonus isn't the best. I still think that Tatiana with the 15% health damage increase is better, because again, it's a higher damage value against health. Okay, now I'm going to do something I do not want to do, and that is recommend the operator. And it's going to be for the Leviathan review, actually. If you do not have Elite Valravens, the way that I was farming for it was with operators, and to say that it's a gamble is an understatement. Every time you hit one of the targets, I was fighting the Infestors, it's a roll of the dice. You never know how much damage you're going to come out of the fight with. And the reason it's a gamble is because at the beginning of the fight, you'll want 6 operators, at least Mark 3. I would recommend Mark 4. And what you're going to do is you're going to rush down each and every single Valraven, because if not, they're going to be giving you issues the entire fight. So take whatever damage you can at the beginning of the fight, but put them down before they become a threat. After that, you're going to regroup, and I'll actually talk about and show it in the video, but it's going to be necessary unless you're going to do the Elite Valraven path and just auto-farm targets. Let's see. Wraith Cruiser is old tech, and we can farm that from the sector. I can do videos on that later. Zeus Box is Erico. This is another one that I can recommend. During the Umbral strikes, I would recommend doing what you can to pick up the Erico as well as the corresponding tech. You're going to want Blight Missiles, the Nova Missile. You're going to want Havoc Cannon, and I'll share the fitting with them during that video, but it's fairly straightforward and simple, and it is extremely auto-friendly. And if you want to add a little bit more skill to it, well, you can take manual control and fly them in. I recommend picking up each and every single one of the credit items here. Armor, Tungsten, the Ablative, and Nova Cannon, because they're all credit items. They can help you quickly equip them to ships as well as refit them. And in the case of the cruisers and stuff like that, it comes in handy when you want to refit something like a Trojan or a Bastion if you're stuck with them or anything like that. You don't always have to stick with that weapon, it's an easy step up. Since we're not recommending the Plexus, I'm not recommending the Kaon Driver. Nightingale drones, I can recommend them because I use them on the Segfault, and despite it being limited use right now due to the current state of Pharmacon, I can still at least recommend it because they're still high-level targets it can hit reliably, unlike the operators where you have to take a gamble. So, I'd recommend picking up all 4 of them because you're going to be farming for the Segfault at some point or another to use to help you advance. Never used Ifrit, Hostility Augment, or anything like that. Never had any issues with my own behemoth like that. Spectral Zealots, I can recommend picking up every single one of them because they're the spawn ships. They literally don't cost you any repair time. They rush in and they die in your stead. Nothing is better than that. Spectral Mers. 1 through 3, well, pick them all up. You're going to be using level 1 for the fittings I use, but level 3 for some specialized that other people would recommend. I'm going to skip over most of that stuff. Spectral Screens. You're going to want each of the screens if possible. Well, actually, you don't even need to do that. You can farm these from the Pharmacon sector, if I'm not mistaken. So you don't need those. You don't need the node armor. Specialized stuff like resistors you may want to pick up because you never know when you're going to need it, especially with how often the damage types and the fleets change. So pick up at least half of the spectral armor, half of the energy, well, not the energy siphon resistors, because even I don't use their resistors because it affects your health, and most of the time you're going to be playing hit and run with the Pharmacon. You're not going to want to get hit outside of phase, unless you're you're trying to rush a video out for the Leviathan and burn yourself out. In which case then I would have recommended using the explosive, which I didn't. Because I don't have any on hand that I'm aware of. As for the Altarian ones, well, I can recommend them because I actually use the energy resistant ones on my Orator. And I use the Pierce resistor, and I change them out. I have the explosive, the kinetic, and it depends on what type of armor fitting I need and what I'm taking the most damage from. Just like with most other things. The elements. I can recommend picking up the gravimetrics, pyrochemistry, and spectronics, but I can't recommend picking up xenoplasm or blight because you can actually farm them from a good majority of fleets that spawn around the clock. Mostly dreadnought targets, but as you progress in the game, you'll be able to more reliably and quickly farm them, so you'll be able to produce credit items and stuff like that from weapons. Gold prize boxes. Naturally, I can recommend them because any of them that drop the credit items you can use to very, very quickly fit ships that you take the time to build. And the same goes for these ones. Now, the reason you would want them is because, let's say you're starting and you're just barely getting up to, let's say, Altarian. Since there are no time tokens anymore for them, well, you're going to have to wait a day for them to build the ship blank. And then you can very hastily fit them by equipping them with credit items and then refitting them because it's nearly instantaneous, or the time reduced will take less time than it would have taken to fit it initially. And it just helps to pay off to just also time what you're doing with when you're free. As for the Axis build tokens and stuff like that, most definitely pick them up if you're working on the Axis fleet or anything like that. The next video with the Enforcers will be out on Monday, continuing on, and it's going to be continuing on with the Battleship class because you're going to be stepping into the Paragon. I know, not the best ship to be stepping into, because, the thing is, well, I called the entire Altarian faction trash with the exception of the Dreadnought video and then proceeded to explain why and what I would do to fix them. So, well, called the entire faction trash, I'll just call the Battleship trash again. Poor thing did nothing this time around, though, because it's going to be the recommended farming target. But, aside from that, resources are the last thing, and, well, that's it. Give me a quick moment. Okay. With all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and let's lay out the plan for next week. Well, the upcoming week. First off, we're going to be talking about the Leviathan on Monday, most likely before any type of tutorial video goes out, because this is the first major dreadnought for Tier 8. It is the first Tier 8 dreadnought at that. And thus far, I am loving it. There is very few drawbacks with it. I've been just deeply enjoying it, and I can't wait to begin farming the mark upgrades, but that's going to be a grind of its own. And my initial fitting is just a very, very hastily put together one, and there's a little joke about the health. Without Victoria, it's like 69,000, yeah. Yep. That number never ceases to amuse me. For all of the older folks out there, you'll understand why. And let's see. The repair time is set to 8 hours. It can't go up, can't go down, so no matter what we fit on it, it will never change, which means that at the elite levels, it'll actually be better than something like, say, the Behemoth, because 7 hours, 33 minutes. This is only 27 minutes longer than that, but the difference is this can hold a whole lot more. As we can see here, we'll be able to have 6 armor slots, well, 6 ablative slots and 6 armor slots, 9 weapon slots. It's just, it will be so much more durable for nearly the same repair time that it will just feel so comfortable farming with it in comparison to the Behemoth. And with their armor launching at some point, I can't remember exactly when, I'd have to poke around and get that information. But we'll be getting the armor for them and stuff like that. We already have their ablative, I'm talking about the actual armor. But thus far, my thoughts on it are, it's extremely impressive. I'm actually content with it so far. I've been actually using it to farm a bit with co-op targets with a few people. And it's so far, I haven't had any issues with it. At Mark 1, the only thing that I can think of is with any Mark 1 ship, it needs to be Mark upgraded. That's about it. Other than that, I was using it. The only issue I have is with the rate of the long-range fire of like Nova drivers and things like that due to the lower projectile speed, but with the faster, harder-hitting weapons such as the Cascade missiles or the Parox cannons, there's not really an issue with them because they reliably hit the targets, especially due to Victoria boosting the missiles. But the overdrives, this is the one that gets hilarious. So, we got the incapacitate, and this is what I want to talk about right here, right now, because this is the one that everyone's going to love. Because it functions so perfectly. Whenever a target enters your firing arc of the Dreadnought, it will gain 1 stack, and that stack will allow it to apply stasis. So similar to the Behemoth, as it shoots stuff, it stasises them. But here's where it gets brokenly overpowered and extremely amazing. That is for every target. It can go up to a 100% stasis and, well, 99.99%, because it can never be absolute, but in combat you can effectively stop your targets and hold them still. So, the lack of weapon speed for Nova drivers and stuff like that is completely irrelevant, because all it has to do is hit you once. If you have multiple ships in the fleet, or a large number of them around you, you can stasis them, hold them still, and destroy them. And I have to say, it was reliably able to do that. And I'll talk about it more on Monday, but that's all I wanted to talk about, was just partially lay out what the week is going to be what the week will hold and stuff like that. Talk about mobilization. Next I'll do the targets, but that's for a video for later, because I'm going to have to repair a few things. I'm going to go out and I'm going to poke the targets you're going to want to farm, because those targets will also work into the Dreadnought grind, which is the main thing I want everyone to focus on in the game, is the Dreadnought grind. Because with the Dreadnoughts you can farm just about anything else. But getting to the Dreadnoughts is, well, it's tedious. But that's going to be it, everybody. Hope the quick overview of the Mobilization Prize Store helped. For anyone looking forward to the Dreadnought, I was as well, and I hope you look forward to the video on Monday for that review, as well as showcasing what it does in combat, and a little bit more. And the next tutorial will be out, and well, one thing I will do, let's go ahead and let's quickly go over the ships you'll be using in the next tutorial. You're going to be using Enforcer battleships of this fitting right here. And the target you're going to be going up against, I've carefully specialized them after a few different tests to be able to farm the Paragon fleets. And what you're going to do is, every time you start to lose shields, you'll fall back as with the recharging shields. But one thing you're going to want to prepare in between now and then is start working on leveling up your fleet commander Burr, because you're going to want his shield bonus instead of increased damage against with missile explosive weapons this time around. Because you're going to want the increased shield energy to just help you last a little bit longer, because one thing I did notice was without him, the shields drop far too quickly on the ships when they come under heavy fire. But when they're spread out, it actually works fairly well. And the other ship you're going to want is just going to be a random Dominion carrier, which you will have if you've completed the campaigns, and you're going to be using it mainly for the speed boost. Alternatively, if you do not want to waste one, you can just whip yourself up a Midgard. It'll take a fairly short amount of time, and you can take that out, and again, you're just going to be using it for the speed boost. And so you can start farming the targets, get the Paragon as soon as you can, start producing them. That'll get you into the Altarian tier as soon as you can produce them, actually. which means you also need to upgrade your base and stuff like that. Blah. Dehydrated more than anything else in the world right now. Blah. But that is going to be it, everybody. Hope this video helps those of you looking through the Mobilization store wondering what to get currently. This is just based off of what I've used and what I find useful. And for those of you waiting to see Dreadnought grind targets, stuff like that, we're going to be continuing fairly soon. During the next week, I'm going to be primarily focusing on getting everyone up to speed with tutorials and stuff like that, as well as getting everyone up to speed with grinding out the Dreadnoughts, because, again, they're extremely important. That's finally it. Happy hunting out there in the void, everybody. Be safe. I guess I'll see you later.